Welcome to What Happened, the show where we, you know the drill, we discuss and dissect video game disasters for your amusement and laughter. And when you talk about laughter, there is no better target for such derision than Todd Coward and his incredibly busted online burnt-out post-apocalyptic party van known as Fallout 76. But before we enter this new, barely functioning modern wasteland, let's rewind back to the classy, dignified time period of 1997. Fallout, a post-nuclear role-playing game, hit the PC, directed by two geniuses by the names of Fergus Urquhart and Tim Kaine, who sound like they wouldn't be out of place in the wasteland themselves. The game was a critical darling and a financial success, so Interplay quickly greenlit a sequel, Fallout 2, with directing duties now falling to Tim Kaine and Chris Avellone. While not a huge improvement over the first, Fallout 2 still focused on compelling gameplay, story, and writing, and while it was a little bit shakier on release in terms of bugs, it was still seen as a worthy successor to the first one. Then Bethesda happened. Well, okay, not quite yet. Yeah, there were some other random releases and some cancelled spin-offs, IP rights being disputed, but, for our story, we're just gonna slip back into our vault and wait a few more years for all this to blow over. Ten years later, in 2008, Bethesda Game Studios released Fallout 3. They had purchased the rights from Interplay, and as was the style at the time, brought back an old PC franchise by making it into a shiny console FPS. Now, let's get this out of the way. Fallout 3 had some problems. No one is denying that, and by the same token, no one's denying what a success it was commercially. It is literally the game that pushed Bethesda over the top to be the entity it is today. Now, it can't be overlooked that Oblivion had its part in doing that 2 years earlier, but this is like the double punch of id releasing Wolfenstein, followed up by Doom, which Bethesda now own. So why is it that in 2018, they made one of the worst first-person RPGs, being a bit generous, one of the worst MMOs, no, not that either, I don't know what this game is, so let's just ask the question, what happened? E3 2018, Todd Howard confidently strides on stage, letting the world know that he'll defeat Jiren no problem. Bethesda had a pretty cool conference. They showed lots of new things coming out soon, later, and much later. When they got to Fallout 76 though, there were some questions like, what the hell is this thing? Is it multiplayer, an MMO? Wait, is it a sequel or a spin-off? Now listen, just ask companies like Nintendo. Messaging is important. If you can't clearly explain to people what your product is, then the product will confuse and anger them. Bethesda man Pete Hines did several interviews around this time that shed absolutely zero light on what they were going for with this new venture. This is not an MMO, and this is not a battle royale, he said. It's supposed to feel like they just left the vault. Okay. It is important to note that this is not just a full PvP game, he said, where you get in the world and everyone shoots everyone. It's more like a challenge to another player. What does that mean? Fallout 76, at its core, is an online-only open-world survival game. That's pretty much the simplest way to break it down. It's not an RPG, as there is no real quest lines or NPCs or anything approaching a meaningful story. You just kinda wander around a giant map while everything sort of breaks around you. Spinning this off from what was almost exclusively a single-player only, dialogue-heavy series seems a bit ill-advised. Now, Fallout Shelter? That made sense for mobile and was well received because their message and the reason for the existence of the game was fairly obvious. What Fallout 76 was, or is not obvious. A mix of an MMO, survival with kind of single player elements, and it's only online. You need to be sure of how you're going to balance all that. Pete Hines isn't sure. Only a few months before the game had its first beta, he pontificated, "One of the things the team is still working on is how to balance, allowing players to play the game how they want to, but also delivering the sense of trepidation when they see another player show up on the horizon. We're still trying to figure out how to make it feel like there is some tension." Doesn't that seem like the first thing you should have figured out? The point of the game? The experience of meeting other players online? That's what all this is about, yeah? After E3, the nervous, sweaty shaking most Fallout fans had suffered through was finally subsiding, only for them shakes to come roaring back with slimy enthusiasm. In October, 1 month before the game comes out and days before the beta, Bethesda warned players that 76's launch should be considered a starting line and not the finished game. Spectacular bugs and issues are to be expected. That's like a dentist being really upfront with you when you make an appointment with them. You're on the phone, they just go, "Yeah, Wednesday at 9 a.m. Expect spectacular pain and misery." Bethesda Game Studios, the actual development team, as of this year is composed of 400 employees, and ZeniMax, their parent company, owns several other developers that could all do contract work. If you have all these resources at your disposal and a game is still not ready, why not delay it if you yourselves are expecting it to be a bad time? You are Bethesda. You can take a few hits, like not releasing something in an already packed holiday calendar. But when you take a calculated risk and assuming your fans will simply bite their lips and endure it, I imagine that decision becomes easier to make. However, Fallout fans simply didn't just endure it with minimal complaint. They made their voices known. Hang on to your canvas bags, people. We've only just started.
Big waste of time as far as I'm concerned. What a bunch of garbage.
The first Fallout 76 beta came out 3 weeks before the full release. Now, while that might make sense for fine-tuning the online play of a upcoming fighting game, it's a bit worrying for a massive PvP MMO open world thing that's expected to sell in the millions. It's going to get its first stress test less than a month before launch. Hilariously, the first problems arose before anyone could even boot it up. The beta ran into an issue where many players had to download the whole thing twice due to errors with the Bethesda launcher, and since the beta period only lasted 4 hours, this caused many players to not be able to play in time, as they had to re-download all 50 gigs. Once it was over, and players let their displeasure be known, Bethesda reopened it for a few additional hours for those that missed out. Also, of course, the actual experience was a massive garbo fire. Poor performance, crashes, and everything you'd expect from a Bethesda Studios product. But, that's the point of a beta. Still though, this was boding bad for 76 in general, especially since during this time they released an emergency patch that totaled 30 gigs, which boded even badder. The game launched officially on November 14th, and it's rough.
I think I look pretty cool.
It had a myriad of issues that are too numerous to count here, but here's a lot of them. But hey, lots of major games get released with bugs, and lots of them get day one patches. So, Fallout 76 decided to one-up them all by having a day one patch that was 54 gigs, bigger than the main game. This patch could not be preloaded, so even if you did preload the main game, whoa, hold your Brahmins there, little Maddie. You're not ready for Fallout yet. So just take a breather, wait for that big old patch to download, and think about all the mistakes you've made in life. Now, let's get physical. the $200 Power Armor Edition. To start off with, not only were the in-game items included in this special bundle deemed unbalanced by most players, there were a few other Baggate. Now, I'm no expert on bags, or like the baggy lifestyle. I have this Zelda bag over here and this Puma one, and they carry my shit good, and that's all I know. However, the Power Armor Edition of Soldier 76 was advertised as including a canvas bag, which, through my research, is widely recognized as a good type of bag. People love this bag. So, for whatever reason, without telling anyone, Bethesda made a switch to a cheaper nylon-based affair, which is apparently a worse bag. Now, the only thing I know about nylons is that girls do something with them. Regardless, it was clear that Bethesda hoped no one would notice, which they did. And once they started noticing hard and loud, Bethesda offered 500 atoms of in-game currency to compensate for the shitty bag they lied about. Just so it's clear, 500 atoms is not enough to even buy a bag in-game, which is all sorts of funny. So, naturally, when people complained about that, Bethesda finally offered an explanation for all of this by stating, "Unfortunately, due to the unavailability of materials, we had to switch to a nylon carrying case in the Fallout 76 Power Armor Edition. We hope this doesn't prevent anyone from enjoying what we feel is one of our best collector's editions ever." That seemed to be the end of it, until like a day later, on December 3rd, where Bethesda's arm was twisted just enough to offer a replacement of the nylon bags for canvas if there were any fans who still cared. You know, it's unfortunate the materials used to make those canvas bags were not available at launch, because they seemed really— oh wait, that's a lie. Certain influencers, the smelly term for people who make stuff on Twitch and YouTube, were given super high quality Fallout branded knapsacks made out of the canvas material. These were primarily handed out at various launch events that were invite only. So, yeah, fans cared that certain people got the canvas based goodies, but you know, not the people that paid $200. Now, if you wanted a replacement bag, all you had to do was submit a ticket with all your pertinent information on the Bethesda help desk before January 19th, 2019. A replacement bag will be sent to you. Hooray! Oh no! Once you submitted a ticket, you would be exposed to the personal info of hundreds of other fans due to a bug with the ticketing system. You can't make this stuff up. Now, given the obvious urgent nature of this problem, the bug was fixed very quickly, but again, much like everything with Fallout 76, was hilarious. Fixing a huge PR problem with a bigger one. Even in real life, Bethesda's stuff is still buggy. So, you know, for Fallout 76, I think that about sums it up. No, fuck that. Let's keep going. Let's talk about nukes. 76's method of triggering raids, guess what? Had a series of its own unique problems that I think maybe, you know, if the game had been tested a bit more, would have been found early on. Anyway, for those that don't understand how nukes work, you have to find a certain number of randomly generated codes in the game world and decipher them to launch a nuke. It takes a bit of doing. However, a savvy secret cabal of players wanted to perform an experiment. If they simply amassed a bunch of codes, which is fairly straightforward as it just requires a lot of playtime for one person, could they launch multiple nukes at once? Well, if they coordinated and searched for all the code bits at the same time, they could gather as many as they needed very quickly. They then fed the codes into a third-party website or deciphering program, and voila! Enough viable codes to launch 3 nukes at once. Fortunately though, when all 3 nukes hit, the game world did shake a bit, but it was mostly stable. I can't even say that with a straight face. Complete server crash. Not only that, nukes could be assigned to detonate in Morgantown, the starting area of the game that's mostly populated by new, naive players completely oblivious that a big old fat boy is looking to land on their peaceful community. Now, when nukes land, they spawn super high-level enemies that you're supposed to team up with higher-level players to take on, but the poor, under-equipped denizens of Morgantown suffered many losses. Godspeed, you plucky heroes. So, things weren't going super well for the launch of Bethesda's new online survival MMO thing. But hey, that's what patches are for. The first post-launch patch weighed in at a whopping 47 gigs on Xbox and around 15 on PC. This, of course, isn't accounting for that day one patch mentioned earlier, mind you, so if you are a console gamer, you've had to install and or download 146 gigs of Fallout 76 since it launched. Bethesda apologized for the size of this patch, and said while future patches will vary in size, they don't expect any of those will be close to this big bitch. They also promised to be more transparent going forward and will let the community know through detailed notes and updates of which areas of the game are being worked on. Eventually, on December 4th, right around the time of Baggate, another patch goes out that's simply not detailed enough and fails to mention certain stealth changes like nerfs to resource farming at camps and fusion cores for power armor now not lasting as long as they did pre-patch. This understandably pissed off the fanbase that was already pretty pissed off, so community managers apologized for the murky communication and promised more clarity in the future. Finally, one more patch of note went out that added push to talk and other fixes, but Bethesda again got into hot, irradiated water in regards to a change it was making to the Feed the People public event, a scenario which rewards all players on the server with a hearty can of meat stew. The change was treated as a bug fix, even though no one ever complained about it or thought it was even a bug to begin with. Fixed an issue in which completing the Feed the People event quest granted canned meat stew to all players on the server rather than only the quest participants. Fans all over the subreddit and other forums complained about this because everyone was under the impression that's just how the quest worked, a nice extra for everyone currently on the server. Fans have campaigned for this to get put back into the game, and as of this writing, Bethesda has not replied. And you just think, after what everyone has been through with fucking super demons running around in nuked starting areas, chasing players who are still bagless and hoping their private information wasn't stolen, while others are still downloading gig 87 of 146 and everyone just being so very tired, hungry and stressed that they could just unwind. Sit in a stained, broken armchair in the middle of nowhere and just enjoy their free, goddamned canned meat stew that they can no longer get. As of this video, Fallout 76 hasn't had any new controversies, but more are sure to come. While the game is indeed some sort of spin-off, and Bethesda probably means to put out a more traditional entry in the series in the future, people are already capitalizing on 76's critical failure and the ill will of the fanbase. At the Dorito Pope ceremonies, The Outer Worlds was announced, proudly touting that the original minds behind Fallout are firmly in the driver's seat and promises what Fallout fans actually want: a solid, well-written, single-player RPG that challenges, delights, and entertains. Not this.
Morty, how you liking this sponsored content, huh? Yeah, this is pretty good. This is as good as it gets, top notch.
Even with all the mistakes and mismanagements we've outlined, 76 still managed to successfully crack the top 10 selling games of November 2018, settling in at a comfortable number 4. However, this also marks the third lowest selling game in the series, trailing both Fallout 4 and New Vegas, So at least some fans knew a bad deal when they saw it. I think, over the course of this video, it's fairly obvious that this title has greatly damaged the Fallout brand and Bethesda themselves. And while Todd Howard can make self-deprecating jokes at conferences,
because evidently these online games are hard, they can have some nasty issues. I read on the internet that our games have had a few bugs. I did. I read it on the internet, so it's true.
it can't be overstated that this is one of the biggest critical failures of any game of this magnitude and pedigree. You know, think about it this way. Several people, nay dozens of them, saw a game that looked like this, and they eventually all came to the consensus of, yeah, that looks fine, just ship it. Oh, and mail out those gross nylon bags too. Whew, if you know of any other catastrophic video game catastrophes, let me know in the comments below or send a straightforward and businesslike email to McMuscles@gmail.com. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next episode of Wahapa.